Look at it. The Twilight Zone is a place of imagination, a land of shadow. To reach it, you write a dream. To enter it, you need only your imagination. For over 60 years, those words have served as an invitation to the unknown. Most people remember the Twilight Zone for its cosmic twists, its talking dolls, and its ironic justice, a show that used the supernatural as a scalpel to dissect the darkest corners of the human heart. While its creator, Rod Serling, was showered with awards for his biting social commentary, there was one specific story that didn't just push the envelope, it ripped it wide open. It caused a backlash so severe, so visceral, that the episode was effectively wiped from television for over half a century. While the rest of the series became the bedrock of science fiction, this one chapter was treated like a crime scene. It was locked away in a vault, scrubbed from syndication, and omitted from marathons as if it never existed. It wasn't a grotesque alien or a terrifying monster that scared the censors. It was something far more grounded, far more realistic, and far more dangerous. Today, we step into the middle ground between light and shadow to uncover the mystery of the lost episode. What happened within those 30 minutes that forced a major network to bury it for 50 years? Welcome to Royal Time of Hollywood, the man who outsmarted the censors. When you think of the greatest television ever made, the name The Twilight Zone is inevitable. It first hit the airwaves on October 2nd, 1959, and for 5 years, it offered a weekly anthology of the strange. But the show wasn't born from a love of sci-fi, it was born from a man's rage. Before he became our guide through the fifth dimension, Rod Serling was a superstar writer constantly at war with network executives and corporate sponsors. In the 1950s, sponsors held absolute power. If a tobacco company sponsored a show, characters couldn't cough. If a car company paid the bills, the buildings of their competitors had to be digitally or physically removed from the background. Serling wanted to write about real-world issues, racism, war, and corruption. But every time he tried, the suits would butcher his scripts until the message was gone. That's when Serling had a stroke of genius, the Trojan horse strategy. He realized that a network censor didn't care if you talked about prejudice, as long as the prejudice was happening to a green-skinned alien on a planet 6 million miles away. He used the Twilight Zone as a cloak. By hiding his messages in the supernatural, he finally found a way to show America its own ugly reflection without the censors even realizing they were being criticized. The Haunted Architect, Rod Serling's trauma. To understand the show, you have to understand the man. Rodman Edward Serling was born on Christmas Day, 1924. He was a small-town boy from Binghamton, New York, but his innocence died in the Pacific during World War II. Serling was a paratrooper, a member of the Purple Heart Club who saw the absolute worst of humanity during the Battle of Leyte. He watched his friends die in his arms, and he returned home with deep emotional scars, what we would now call PTSD. When he finally got back to the States, he was met with a second blow. His father had died of a heart attack while Rod was overseas. Every ghost, every desperate man running from time, and every character facing the cruel indifference of fate in the Twilight Zone was an extension of Serling's own trauma. He wrote like a man possessed, often working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, fueled by coffee and cigarettes. He was exorcising his demons through the typewriter. The 30-minute masterpiece versus the hour-long nightmare. The Twilight Zone struggled to survive despite its genius. It was actually canceled twice. The first 3 seasons were a perfect, punchy 30 minutes. But in Season 4, CBS made a catastrophic decision. They forced the show into a full-hour format. Serling was horrified. His stories were built for the short story rhythm, a quick build, and a sharp twist. Stretching those plots into 60 minutes made the magic feel thin and the pacing feel sluggish. By the time they switched back to 30 minutes for Season 5, the momentum was gone. The audience had drifted, and the show was finally laid to rest in 1964. However, even in its final season, the show was making history. Take the episode, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. This wasn't actually filmed by the Twilight Zone crew. It was a French short film that had already won an Oscar. The producers were so broke by season 5 that they bought the rights to air the film for $25,000 just to save money on a new production. It became one of the most legendary episodes in the series. If you're enjoying this video, make sure to check out the other stories and shocking updates on our channel. We've covered many incredible celebrity journeys, tragic endings, and untold Hollywood secrets that you don't want to miss. Binge watch our previous videos to discover more surprising facts, emotional stories, and where your favorite stars are today. Your support helps us bring you more powerful content like this, so don't forget to explore, watch more, and stay tuned for the next video. The Encounter, the episode that disappeared. Now, we reach the heart of the mystery. For 52 years, if you watched a Twilight Zone marathon, you would never see an episode called The Encounter. Aired on May 1st, 1964, the episode featured a young George Takei long before his Star Trek fame. The plot is simple but suffocating. Two men are trapped in an attic. One is a weary World War II veteran named Fenton. The other is a Japanese-American gardener named Arthur. Between them sits a samurai sword that Fenton took as a trophy from a soldier he killed. The sword acts as a supernatural catalyst, stripping away their civility and forcing them to confront their racial prejudices and wartime guilt. The backlash was instant and overwhelming. Japanese-American advocacy groups were outraged, but not because of the tension. The episode suggested that Arthur's father had been a traitor who helped guide the planes during the Pearl Harbor attack, a historically false and deeply offensive claim to a community that had already suffered through internment camps. CBS panicked. Fearing a massive public relations disaster, they pulled the episode from the rotation. It wasn't just not aired, it was erased. It didn't appear in syndication, it wasn't on home video for decades, and it didn't resurface until 2016. It remains a haunting reminder of what happens when the show's social commentary hits a nerve that is still bleeding. The voice of doom and the theme of terror. The show's identity was nearly very different. Rod Serling was never supposed to be the narrator. The producers originally wanted a professional, voice of God type like Cornelius Westbrook Van Voorhis. But his voice was too stiff, too pretentious. They even considered Orson Welles, but he was too expensive. Serling eventually stepped into the role himself, creating an iconic persona. The man in the dark suit, cigarette in hand, standing just outside the frame of reality. And then there's the music. Those 4 haunting notes were actually a Frankenstein creation. The original score by Bernard Herrmann was deemed too traditional. The network music director, Lud Gluskin, wanted something cheaper. He found 2 separate musical cues by a Romanian composer named Marius Constant and spliced them together. Constant was paid a flat $200 and didn't even know his music was being used for the show until years later. The legacy of the signpost up ahead. The Twilight Zone was a perfect storm of personal trauma, a battle against censorship, and accidental musical genius. It taught us that the most frightening monsters aren't hiding on Mars. They are the ones we carry inside our own heads. From the nightmare at 20,000 feet to the banned controversy of The Encounter, Rod Serling's creation remains a mirror. Even when the reflection is ugly, it is necessary. What about you? Which Twilight Zone episode still keeps you up at night? Was The Encounter rightly banned, or should it have been used as a teaching moment? Let us know in the comments below. Before you head back to reality, don't forget to like this video, click on the next one on your screen, and subscribe to Royal Time of Hollywood with the bell notification on.